So the room is actually full, so you should, you could, it's okay.
I'd like to know who's using IoT at home. Obviously, you guys are all working with it. It's up for like 5% of the room. Every IoT conference I go to, I ask people this.
Can you take the microphone maybe?
Yeah, sure. Is this it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so I go to these IoT conferences all the time, and I always ask this question. And the number's getting higher and higher, but from the hands that went up then, it was about 5%. So I guess who's worked with an Arduino? Okay. Who's worked with a Raspberry Pi? Who's worked with sort of custom controllers or more low-level stuff? Okay, that's interesting. So I think that's still only going to like 10, 15% there.
If you instead ask the question, how many has a connected device that does something in your home and has a service?
Yeah, okay, going that broad, who has a connected device in their home? Yeah. Okay, that's looking about 40% now. And who's...
Like network routers and stuff.
Yeah, anything like that, I guess. Yeah, so that's everyone. That's 100%. Otherwise, I don't know why you're here. Who's built on top of these APIs? So there's all these connected devices which are siloed. Is anyone actually doing anything with the API? Okay, that's about 20%, probably less than that actually. And why is that? Is it just you don't have enough time, or you're just not that interested in doing it?
You need to learn JavaScript.
This guy said you need to learn some JavaScript to access the API.
Are typically not doing what you expect them to do,
Yeah.
even though they're advertised to be able to do anything you would ever imagine.
Yeah, so they say it's a REST API, you can do everything,
Well,
but it
last
doesn't.
time I had to do something with Raspberry Pi. We changed 3 operating systems, and for a very basic thing, which is, streaming video, we had to check 4 different approaches, and eventually it worked out, but we spent so much time that if we had to build a client, all the hours definitely not count again.
Okay, so an API isn't good enough, so how do you think we should solve this?
My point entirely is that I don't like to use the dual core ARM to just control what I like, and that is, I think, one of the big problems right now. There are not many frameworks for smaller devices.
Okay, so there's these cloud APIs, everything's being siloed, so that's a problem. And we don't want to work directly with APIs, so do you want client libraries and your own languages? Is that one solution, you think? Yeah?
One of the problems I had with Arduino to get with really cheap hardware, MQTT stable working.
Yeah.
And I used MQTT with almost everything to open doors, to use RFID, to use messaging. And actually had to swap out the Arduinos for Raspberry Pis, which are more expensive, to get things working.
So we want more low-cost devices that can run better protocols. We don't want to use HTTP. I don't want to use HTTP for these things.
I would ideally like to be able to buy $15 device that can track doors for a start.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm solving a lot of the problems with protocols by using an integration platform. There's one called OpenHub.
Okay,
and it supports like 70 protocols and technologies.
Who's used OpenHub here? How long did it take you to get it set up from scratch? I saw it and I was like, I don't have time for this. This is crazy.
It's easy if you don't want to build from source.
Yeah.
But if you want to build from source, it takes some time with Eclipse to set it up.
Would you suggest everyone try it out?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Definitely.
Okay, that's awesome.
May I add to that?
Yeah, I'll go over
Does
here.
anybody get one OpenHub to talk to another OpenHub?
Okay, one guy.
Okay.
That's 0.1% of the room, maybe.
If I may point to that.
Yeah.
One problem I see with the APIs and with all the protocols, they're all open to do everything.
Yeah.
And nobody tells you what to do.
Yeah, they're not standardized. Yeah, yeah.
The application layer is the problem in my eyes.
Okay.
Has anybody ever used X10?
I don't think I'm old enough to have used X10. It's quite old. Who's used X10? Anyone used X10?
I know it, but I haven't used it.
No.
I can agree on that.
Yeah.
It's old, yeah. I think Z-Wave is more interesting.
Yeah. Who's used Zigbee and Z-Wave? Who's used both, and which one do you prefer? Yeah.
I think Z-Wave, even though it's not open source, it's moving faster than Zigbee.
If I go on like Amazon or anything like that and I look for Z-Wave X device or whatever I want, and I do the same with Zigbee, I always find a lot of Z-Wave stuff. So I'm really leaning towards that. I think in the US they're leaning more towards Zigbee. I don't know what your opinion is, but Yeah.
But going in that direction, I mean, we will every 4th year have a new technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in 90s on a conference where we had the final solution. It's called LonWorks. How many knows about LonWorks? Zip. It had everything. It had an OSI stack, any physical layer, radio, whatever you wanted. It had unique IDs on every device. It had properties saying, I am a wall switch and I am a LAN, and I can talk to each other. And it had interoperable data.
The Antwerp Central Station in Belgium, everything is connected with LonWorks, and there are 500,000 nodes, networks.
Yes.
Can we repeat this for the video?
I don't know the protocol you just mentioned.
Exactly, yeah. But there's
LongWorks.
There's very big installations with LongWorks running today. Millions of devices. And you don't even know the protocol.
And is it an industrial solution? Is that what it's been used for? What's the main use case?
Doing automation.
So just general automation.
General
Okay.
automation in an interoperable way.
So-
But it's old. And it has a 48-bit authentication,
Okay.
which you would crack in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And so nobody uses anymore.
Yeah.
And now the physical thing is the one we do. So we change the physical layer, and hopefully everything is going to Wi-Fi. No, we do need other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we constantly need to bridge between different things, either locally or higher up.
I can explain a project. Let me take this. This is actually who knows CERN, the accelerators and the Large Hadron Colliders. And it's kind of like an Internet of Things because they have these really huge, it's 22-kilometer circumference collider system, and they're controlling all of these different machines in real time. So the thing has 2 halves. There's the controlling the experiment and spinning up these particles which go faster and faster and faster, and they use magnets and accelerators and lasers and whatever else magic, I don't know. And then there's the experiments themselves, which are these big machines where they smash particles and they photograph the results. Well, they capture that and they send off data. So it's the first part that I've seen. And the problem they have there is that every single manufacturer has their own protocols. So they have 5 or 10,000 devices, and they have 100 different suppliers. And they're all providing these things with funny industrial control serial ports and RS-323 and some random USB, and it's all different and all bizarre. And so their solution is to basically write for every device a kind of a driver layer, which will talk to that device and is custom coded, too bad, and then map that onto some standard open protocol that they can then build infrastructure and middleware on top of. And then they can do command and control protocols which talk to this fabric and then talk to the devices. So it means that they can actually bully their suppliers into writing these drivers. And the drivers can be closed source. It doesn't matter as long as they're talking the open protocol.
Does this come back against the APIs and libraries? We don't want to use
Right.
raw APIs.
Right.
We want nice libraries that are well
Right.
written in our own languages.
Well, it comes to giving developers, I think, very simple APIs at the right level, which are simple and which work in C, work in Python, work in PHP, work in Java, and which talk protocols which work in any language. So you don't want a protocol or an API which is language specific, otherwise you start making fragmentation. And you don't want closed protocols, otherwise you can never actually do a kind of a hostile stack, like, the supplier is not collaborating so you can fix his stuff. If the protocol is open. So I'm sorry, I think the room is full and it's actually marked as full outside, so we can't come in. And that seems to work, but that's a very slow project. It still takes them years and years to build up this infrastructure. But that was their goal, and they were actually using Corba as their messaging system, and they're moving to a ZeroMQ based system, which is open, but that's not really the thing. But it seems to be simplicity and language accessibility. If you get simple APIs that you can use quickly and which work out of the box, that seems to be, none of us have time to spend, right?
So is there such a protocol?
Yes, there are.
At CERN, but it's
Yes, at CERN.
Corba-based. Is there any other? I could recommend a speech at 3 that I'm holding.
So, for example, this morning we saw an example, ZOCP, which was, and this is the funny thing about, I'm not going to advertise ZeroMQ, but what ZeroMQ actually gives us is a kind of a toolkit for building custom protocols very quickly. testing them and developing them, quite sophisticated protocols, and doing it very, very quickly in a language neutral way. So we can experiment. It used to take 6 months to make even a minimal protocol, and maybe several years to make a real protocol, and now we can do this in a few days, a few hours practically. So that's interesting in terms of developing simpler solutions to connectivity.
And there's also a solution that's working today with tens of millions of things federating each other. It's called XMPP.
Yes.
It's an instant messaging, and you can use it for devices.
How efficient is it compared to, let's say, MQTT or some other?
Well, it is
lightweight
XML.
stuff,
It's
yeah.
XML, yes. So it's not a binary. There's a V2C standardization of how to binary compile or transport. Oh, sorry. The XMPP transport is an XML based, therefore we can extend it at any time with namespaces and so on. W3C has an extension called EXI, where you can binary transport any XML. You just remove all tags. It's if you have 7 tags, it's 3 bits. So if you have a hash table with all the repeated strings, it's quite thick. And then if you compress the strings and so on. And that's standardized, so you can do it on any XML at any level. But of course, no, it's not for a temperature sensor. But for an open hub, or a device that's your gateway, throwing up to the whole federated network of XMPP servers, anything could talk to anything in any other domain. And you can use any physical layers you want in your home. Going to a co-op or whatever, and then federating it, making businesses between companies, whatever. Any device in any company can talk to any device in another company, just as you would do with instant messaging. 3 o'clock.
You're advertising your talk?
Yes.
Ah, that's what it was.
I have some crazy methodology I'm working on. I'm working on something called the IoT methodology. Does anyone have a laptop I can use a VGA connection with, which is connected to the internet? I have a Mac, but I don't have my adapter to connect it with. And do you have an internet connection there?
I'm joined to the network, so
Okay.
you should be able
Perfect.
to yourselves there.
Okay, so my name is Tom Collins. I'm working for a startup called smartliving.io, and we're a Belgian-based startup building an Internet of Things end-to-end solution. And basically, we've been working on this for
You're connected, so you should be
year.
able to listen.
We've been working on it for about a year or two, and I've been involved in a ton of different aspects of the platform. But what I'm trying to do now is just share some of the things that I've learned from it and make it a bit easier for other people to build IoT projects. Can you say that again, sorry? No, we're not.
Pico TCP will be speaking later today. That's TAS. And they actually have a stand in the building, AW. Okay. Yeah, so they're talking at 12 o'clock. It's actually Maxine.
Okay, I'm working on this crazy IoT methodology. I'll dig into that a bit deeper. Some context for this. So Smart Living is a platform we're building. So if you go to smartliving.io, we've currently launched the platform in beta, and you can connect things like Arduino, smartphones, there's HTML5 widgets, there's all sorts of different things you can connect. The back end for it, we're using RabbitMQ, so you can connect with MQTT, AMQP, Stomp, there's REST interfaces, so you can connect pretty much what you want. We're really pushing Z-Wave as well, so we have a Z-Wave gateway we're working on. We have a Raspberry Pi sort of developer version, so you can extend the gateway. And then we have this really slim, lightweight Z-Wave to IP version 6. So it does everything in the cloud, and you just have to plug this thing into your router, and you can start connecting Z-Wave devices. So that's Smart Living. I'm not going to go into that. It's, if you're interested, you can look at that. The IoT methodology is really something I'm pushing at the moment. So it's trying to collect best practices for approaching IoT and abstract between designers and developers. The biggest problem I have with our development team is we get lots of crazy ideas, but then they start thinking about limitations of protocols and technologies and how can we convert these ideas into working projects and actually prototype them and start seeing results straight away. I was recently at Intel in Munich as well, trying out their Edison and Galileo, which are really awesome prototyping boards. if you've used Arduino and Raspberry Pi, you're going to hit roadblocks eventually, because they're not really designed for IoT. They're just microcontrollers, which people are trying to use for IoT now. The Galileo, it's kind of for IoT. The Edison is really positioned for it. If you don't know what it is, it's a tiny little controller about this big running a Linux operating system, and it has Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. It's really, really nice. So the goal of this IoT methodology is to allow everyone to experience the Internet of Things by seeing and feeling potentials of common use cases through iterative prototyping and a lean startup mentality. Everything I see at the moment is people talking about these huge numbers, we're going to connect everything in the world, we're all going to become fat and lazy, and it's going to save the planet. It's all talk at the moment. I don't really see that much action. For the last 2 years, I haven't really seen too much. I go to a lot of these conferences and there's still people talking. I like to see live demos, and it's quite hard to find them. By the common use cases, what I mean by that is we do a lot of co-creation sessions, and people always come up with the same use cases. They want a smart fridge, they want a smart car, they want a smart this, they want a smart that. And until these people see it and actually try it out, they're not going to think what we're going to do next, what we're going to build on top of it. So it's concerning the services and apps that we actually build on top of these common use cases. So this leads into the meaningful Internet of Things for humans. Cisco, IBM, they're all pushing smart cities. I don't know if you see many use cases for these smart cities. I don't know if you walk down the street and you think, how am I going to connect this lamp to this bus and to this car and build this awesome application? This is really what they're trying to push, but I don't feel that inspired that I want to build an application based on these smart city APIs. So the overall goal is to enable individuals, communities, and organizations to think, imagine, and question what's next and inspire the next killer app. That's really what I want to push and get people to start building things. This is the fluffy ethos of the whole project. It needs to be in the spirit of the World Wide Web and open source. It shouldn't be governed by profit or politics. And it should just be about creativity, enthusiasm, pushing people to do something new. So the IoT methodology aims to provide a loosely structured ecosystem of mutual value for all that participate by sharing, collaboration, community, and learning. So we don't want enterprises and people governing what's going on. Enterprises should be involved to provide that aspect, which is really a top-down, but it should be from the maker community, building things, testing things, and really trying these things out. So it's an ecosystem of tools, design patterned, architecture reference models, and guidelines for building IoT solutions. When we built Smart Living, there's no real references. We could find these siloed solutions, but it's very hard to find actual use cases that people are using. Yes?
Yes, considering the fact that you've invested a lot of time in going to conferences and researching the area, what's the most exciting application of IoT? I mean, in a very general sense, not only technology, but exciting for the saving of planet thing that you've seen so far implemented and not on the design.
Okay, so that was the most interesting IoT solution in general, yeah? Anyway. I think Node-RED is really awesome, and I saw that 2 years ago, a big demo of it, and it was in a conference room, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he had everyone in the room using Twitter to interact with this IoT platform, and there's little LEDs lighting up on this device he had. So that was a real IoT use case of everyone interacting with it, and that was really awesome.
What's the benefit of it?
The benefit it was that you could just prototype really easily and start hooking up these devices and building automation over them. So even if you have a distributed platform, it doesn't matter if it's connected to a Z-Wave gateway, if it's a maker's device, if it's a consumer solution, you can start hooking these things together.
What I was thinking about is like you mentioned the bus going, following the lights following the bus on the street. This would be a real life example. So I'm wondering, what's the most exciting real life application of IoT?
If you answer the things I do, frost protection, I do measurements of leaking water. Equipment room. I measure temperature. I detect movements. It's taken from webcams with motion.
Please talk to the speaker who will repeat your question, otherwise it's lost to everyone.
So it was frost detection, temperature detection, general environmental sensors, I guess, yeah?
So is this building automation, ambient living, smart home? What is it?
Well, a part is at my home, a part is at the makerspace in Leiden, where we do the doors and temperatures, because it's it can get below 0. So we don't want to have.
So it's very much sort of building automation and monitoring the environment.
And at home I do also the plans. So I get email when I need to give water to plants.
Again, very much a prototype and not large scale.
For the large scale stuff with smart cities, I don't actually know these great use cases. I know the Smart Santander, they're doing a lot of awesome stuff and there's these things going on, but I can't give you an awesome use case that I've seen.
But if you want to use MQTT now, you
Could you
can
please speak to the speaker? He will repeat your question. Thank you.
you can go to the public MQTT server of the makerspace, and then you can see temperatures of CPUs from Raspberry Pis.
Okay.
Just simple example, you can talk to them.
Maybe another use case which is not very exciting but has a large impact is with smart home and smart building in general and IoT having better energy efficiency, so reducing energy consumption in big buildings with the use of sensors and IoT.
Yeah. You look eager.
A very concrete example. We soon have electric cars, quite a lot of them. If 10 electric cars come home at 6 o'clock and plug them in at the same time, if they don't talk, your transformer will burn. It's 56 kW in each car, just sucking up.
So that's a really interesting use case for smart cars, where you need to keep them constantly charged, they need to be maintained.
Well, energy industry is working hard on it for years already, and they've developed protocols which are implemented in the switchyard stuff in front of the big manufacturer.
Yes, this utility.
It's a big work management system, especially for software based on TCP/IP, and it's mostly one communication, but there's also another part of it that's actually based on Microsoft.
So for the recording, utilities are doing protocols. Yes, and if the utilities are enforcing your home in 61850, your home will die. And it will cost.
We're going to cut the session short now. Tom, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Again. Let me give you.
You should all look at these slides. Go on iotmethodology.com and you can.
Present.
Thank you very much.
That's my book. Thank you very much, everyone. Give a hand of applause to Tom for being Stefan. Yes.